Hello, everybody, and welcome again back to Procrastinator's Pitstop. We have another amazing guest for you today. Actually, this one is a little bit close to my close in camaraderie here because he does hail all the way from Costa Rica, and as some of you may know, that I actually spent a good chunk of time down in Costa Rica, so we had a good time in the green room for a little bit. I, of course, am speaking about Richard Blank, CEO of Costa Rica's Call Center since 2008. He's trained over 10,000 bilingual telemarketers with his motivational speaking style and expertise in communication. A passionate advocate for education, he endows scholarships for students pursuing world languages and boasts the largest collection of restored American pinball machines in Central America, enriching his company's gamified culture. Richard, welcome to the show.
So happy to be with you and your amazing audience today. Procrastinators Pit Stop. Yeah, let's tune this thing up. Let's get things where it needs to be.
And I'm excited to dive into that, but we do like to have a little icebreaker on the show. And the question for you today is, which cartoon character do you resonate the most with, and why?
1972 cartoon Fritz the Cat. Ralph Bashki. Robert Crumb. Absolutely. The dreamer. A little bit of the wild side, but still had his innocence. Anyway, it was a very groundbreaking cartoon, which led the way to a sequel, The Nine Lives of Fritz the Cat, so he was good enough to make another. And anyway, I always thought that was a fun movie to throw on at a party.
Yeah, I love that. I love that Fritz the Cat. We discussed that earlier. I'm going to have to go back and actually watch that one again for sure. So, Richard, can you tell me, what is procrastination to you? How do you define it? And what does it mean to you personally?
Not being able to look at yourself in the mirror because you know perfectly well you should have done this thing 5 minutes or 5 days ago. So I can't really spin it. It really comes down to the fact of where you're so, even the word is disgusted with yourself because you haven't done so many different things that build up that you say enough already, and then you clean it all up. So it's better to do it in a balance. If you can put one thing away, or when you walk, grab things and bring it to the kitchen. It's a nice flow. You should learn to carry a little bit of weight instead of trying to overload the weight when it's too late. So that to me is the game of procrastination and anything and everything in my life.
Excellent. I like that. And what is your secret sauce for overcoming procrastination?
Guess it's about the commitment to myself to finish something. If it's 2 minutes, it's a 2 minute. It's one deep breath or a big bite. But if it's a longer term goal, I don't want to be too hard on myself if my ribs hurt, or if I'm out of breath, or I took a good one in the chin. I'm only human. Sometimes runners rest. You might run in place, but you're still resting. And so I try to be in tune with my body, respect my mind, try to treasure rest and sleep. And if I eat a really good meal, rock on. It's just another day putting fuel in there. And if I can work out, then I can get it out and then receive it. Because I've been working out since I was 17. And so anybody that has that sort of structure and discipline then has the bonus and the boost. So those are the sort of things, my friend, that collectively make that complete.
I like that. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey? Because we all know that when you wind up in Costa Rica, you've got a journey. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to be where you are today?
1 in a million shot from Northeast Philly. This should have never happened. But then again, it should, because I was building on momentum. Instead of following in certain footsteps of my family, I went to Harvard Law, Columbia Business, Washington and Lee undergrad. I didn't have those grades. And if I had those sort of jobs, I don't know if I could do it. It'd feel like a Sunday night exam cramming session. To live like that, I would have been bald at 16. Who wants that stuff? I always loved Spanish. I gravitated towards it. And I tell you what, my man, Chris, when you do dedicated practice, something above and beyond what's expected of you, obviously you love it and you don't need to study hard. You retain it, you use it, you live it. And so my parents and friends couldn't really relate because it was a prerequisite in school. I had to take German, French, or Spanish, and they just barely passed me. I loved it. And so it wasn't a parlor trick. It wasn't cute. It was something where outside of my bubble, when I would meet Latinos, I'd get such positive reinforcement, additional vocabulary and adjustment in my grammar. Rock on. And so when I graduated in 91 at the proud Abington, I got a college recommendation letter from my dedicated Spanish teacher, Esperanza Galchak. That offset my grades, and I really needed something. So the late principal, Norman Schmidt, wrote me a recommendation letter to get me into the University of Arizona so I could be a Spanish major. Check this out. In-state tuition was a fraction of the cost with all the other schools. I was being exceptionally responsible, and I was being marketable, making myself versatile. I was enjoying what I was doing. It was like a romantic life. Why? Because the world's a stage. Everywhere I was going from 91 to 94, I was speaking Spanish. 1 year I lived in Spain. That was amazing. And I really wanted to see what I could do with this gift because I knew, I could taste it, that one day I'd have my James Bond adventure. In a million chance to do something abroad, and you better be ready. If not, you won't have the greatest adventure of your life. And then when I was 27, my cousin Joe said, yo, Richie, why don't you come to Costa Rica for a couple months and work at a friend's center, teach English? Little did I know, and you know this, I stayed for 4 years and worked at my friend's center. I learned the business from the inside out, like you did, my friend Chris. For this podcast, we were ripping stories back and forth. We know exactly what we could talk with hands and know what we're talking about. It was like we lived it together. We just never bumped into each other. We could totally relate, and you understand me, why I wanted to stay, because I fell in love with the Tica. We got married, started a business. I'm on my 17th year in Barrio Aranjuez. Come on, my brother, you know this. It's a dream. It's a long shot. And I can share with you and your audience certain things I do to retain this talent and get the best out of them. But you and I both know this was a serious adventure. Big leap. And we took it. And look at us now. I just didn't stop after 24 years. I'm still here, my man. So that's kind of why I'm here today.
That's definitely admirable, and lots of great stories there for sure. I'd love to dive into, your tips and your hacks for, just keeping that going and always getting better. But, first, every journey has its share of bumps in the road or, challenges or culture shocks. What do you think was the biggest challenge that you had to overcome when you first arrived in Costa Rica?
Looking left and right, not knowing anybody, not being familiar with my surroundings or the timing of things. Long lines and, I guess recharging your patience. You can't be the loud gringo. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to start dropping F-bombs and screaming at people. I'm a guest in this country. And in order not to get beat up in Boys Town at 3 a.m. doing stupid things, I wanted to respect the laws and the people here and really understand the culture. It's a rebirth again. Why not? And we're very close to the United States. We're on the same time zone. It's a democratic society here. That's nice. I didn't feel threatened. The infrastructure is good enough. You still got to look for the holes in the streets when you're driving. And you're just accustomed to the life here. It's more laid back, but then again, you have to be on your toes and be resourceful. Why not? Have a different taste in life. And so as long as you can balance that with the comforts to things that make you uncomfortable, inconveniences, weigh the options. And so for me, it's weird, man. You woke up every day and it was very lucid, extremely bright and vivid. Everything was sharper and louder. When they say stop and smell the roses, you could live in the same town, take the same train, and you don't see anything. It's my first time I'm pointing red roofs out. Down here, I've never looked at everything and anything with such intensity before. How enjoyable was that? It was fresh. Everything. So I was just swept up in it. So as long as I was enjoying myself, not having a bad time, I was willing to ride it as long as it was going to go. It's very interesting to do that at that age of life.
Yeah, no, I love that. And something just came to mind as you were speaking there too, you know. It is a very laid back lifestyle, a slow, like more of a slower pace. It's anybody who's tried to go to the Caja and pay, you know, a water bill or a light bill or something, standing in line for 2 hours. When I first got to Costa Rica, I had to do that, stand in line for like 2 hours to pay the light bill. Um, I don't know. Do you think that is related to a type of procrastination? Like was it always that I was just going on the same day that everybody else had put off paying their bills, like every single time, or is it just it's just slow?
You can choose your Tuesday, Wednesday afternoons. Don't go during lunch days. I don't know. Sometimes you ask the security guard when people aren't around. They'll tell you. Um, but as I mentioned before, I can't hold anybody else before me or after me in line. They're not more important than I am. In fact, it's quite interesting, and I do like this. I see a lot of common courtesy. Popped a tire or two driving on these streets, and I've seen more people running out to help me change the tire, jack it up, give advice, hold an umbrella. Ah, and me today, you tomorrow. When I've seen people that need a jump or something, I always try to help out. And so I've never experienced a bad experience there. You know, you take risk driving here. So at least, you know, it's so funny. When I've had issues on the road, you can always find a mechanic in any town. And any day of the week, you can literally knock on that door and you're like, Don Jose? Yeah, mechanic. Well, you can kind of see the stuff on the side of his house. He's been working on cars. But it's weird when you knock on a door Sunday at 3 while he's watching the soccer game. Yeah, oh, can you please help me fix this? And but that's what it's all about. If you can dance in the rain and you can smile, then by all means, it's going to build your character.
I love that, you know, and it's true, you know, they did have some of the friendliest people that I've ever encountered, um, almost to a fault, some cases, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
But I digress. Why don't you tell us? You were mentioning about putting those skills and those traits to good use before. So how do you stay sharp? How do you really stay on top of your game and, you know, stay productive even while I'm
Well, first, it's your own health. I'm repeating it a second time. If you don't feel good, you're not going to be on the top of your game. If you're able to work out or decompress and you get to prioritize and organize your thoughts and review your day and not send an email because your tone. And so these are certain things to reset yourself. Just don't give all your time to people. You need your own time. And then it's just a lot of self-respect. I don't know how you keep your house. I'm not one to judge. But if you can't make your own bed, you know, if you can't keep things neat, it's really about core before others. And so I'm not saying I'm better or worse than anybody. I might have structure and discipline and a level of self-respect. And so maybe younger generation people that don't know how to iron, know how to cook, don't know how to pay bills, you know, they might look up to somebody that knows how to do those things. And so instead of being the mean kid and teasing, you might be the cool senior and teach the freshmen how to, you know, make it work. So I have no problem, especially with the generation these days. The average age I have is 18 till about 26. I have some in the 30s, 40s, even 50s, but it's really about late teens and mid 20s. I relate to them about what? I got nothing in common with them. So that's why I collect these games. So through happy mediums, we can play together, talk. They're not intimidated by me and they can recharge batteries, make friends. But this is where my advantage is. Back in Philadelphia or in the United States, I'm a dime a dozen. Down here, I'm a one in a million for the fact that I'm bilingual. I'm an English teacher. Also CEO of a call center, which is a linguistic environment. Came here, started a business, no partners, my wife and I. Old school style, really. Like the tortoise in the air. So what do I do differently with these people? It's like an 80s movie. There's always that one person out of place that came in from Europe. Well, I came in from Philadelphia to Costa Rica. I got to add some sort of funny charm to it. I got to teach them some funny slang and give them some Philly guilt. Call the balls in the strikes. They also improve on their grammar and vocabulary and use rhetoric and conflict management, really have them focus on phonetics. It really isn't game time. I can do this, but I can do it with a smile and this spring in my step. But I will polish their English so they can convert these calls, prolong their metrics, really sound engaged and amazing, do positive escalations to get through gatekeepers, tying down with those military alphabets and confirmation question. Don't tell me that doesn't make them marketable and giving them soft skills that they can use outside of the office. So I'm paying it forward, my brother. That's what I'm doing at this stage, Chris. How many dinners can I eat? So at this stage, I'm really enjoying myself. It's kind of like senioritis. My career is good. It's a young man's game now. Did what I had to do. I had my adventure. It's a hero's journey. Now I go on to podcasts to share this information that there are some bosses, leaders, patrones, jefes out there that might actually extend empathy and care about people that work with them, not for them. And are willing to go above and beyond, Chris. Like you mentioned some of the call centers prior to the podcast. You were important, but man, they were so big. You were just a number. It was impossible for the owner to really know you. But if you worked here with me, guarantee you would have been playing pinball with me. We'll already had pizza 3 times. Probably listened to about 3 dozen of your calls and really aced up your game. So your incentives and commissions keep kicking in. Things like that. That's what I did differently from the larger call centers.
No, and I really respect that because, like I told you in the green room, I really ran the gauntlet because
So you
it
did.
was and we had people that, and I'm sure you know some of these people, maybe some of these people landed with you, but we would get in a group and we would work an account and we'd work it for maybe a month, 2 months or whatever, and then we quit, and then we go to the next call center, and then we'd work it for a few months until we got tired of it, then we quit. And then we go to the next one. And then when we ran out of the list, we'd go back to the first one. Just go back and do it again.
Why would you
Yeah.
quit though? Was it the bad account, bad supervisor, unrealistic metrics? I mean, I'm not going to play the side of the owner of the company, but if it happened here and I invested 3 months in you, my man, and really spent a good dozen hours working to refine your game, sure, all's well that ends well, fair in love and war. You're known as a jumper. Sometimes people do put that on a blacklist, and it's not to mark you, but oh man, we put a ton of money in you. And at least preventative measures could have you spoken to me 3 times prior to quitting. But did you even give us a 2 weeks notice? So at least we can transition in and out. So as a business owner, because a lot of your audience own companies and are entrepreneurs, and a lot of us have also worked for companies. And I understand the worker, this place sucks, I'm out of here, giving them the bird. It's, take this job sort of attitude. But then there's others that try to scale and grow and do the right thing and spend their own money and hedge their bet because we're hoping that after 3 months, you might produce $1,000 for the company. And then after, let's say, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 of an investment, it's gone. And I didn't even get a chance to recoup that. So those are the sort of hits that companies take too. It's not your fault, my brother, and I do understand that. But on the flip side, was there any ways that these companies tried to retain you, give you an incentive, and work with you prior to those quittings?
And I think you hit the nail on the head too, Richard, is that in those centers, I mean, you had your metrics, and even if you were good, you really weren't compensated for it. You got rewarded with, if you worked too hard, you got rewarded with tougher calls. Especially in one of the companies I worked with, it was Data Ascension, so we did a lot of surveys. So I'm dating myself. I got on the original web TV account, and it was it was brutal. It was they were nice about it, but what it came down to is, like you said, you need to encourage people, you need to help people, you need to foster that foster that environment, which a lot of them, I mean, if we're being honest, they didn't really do.
You know,
Some of the ones that had, like you were mentioning before, they had Christmas parties where they brought in celebrities and things that, like those generally weren't revolving doors. But any of the ones that did not, and you were, excuse me, so Mall San Pedro, and it was very easy. We go back into procrastination adjacent. It was very easy to have a sense of not belonging and have a sense of, oh, I'm just here to get a paycheck, and that's all they care about is that you're filling a seat. And that was the image that they gave, and that's why they were revolving doors. Well, that and the fact that, right downstairs was in Mall San Pedro, was that little bar that everybody went to at lunch. So, that was kind of another reason people didn't stick around long, probably because they'd show up to work with a little bit of Johnny Rojo, and they'd go on a couple of things. They'd be caught by one of the quality people. They'd be fired for 2 weeks, and then they'd just be back in 2 weeks after that. So and this is why I really like what you're doing and your vision, Richard, because, just showing that you care, and to every entrepreneur out there, just showing that the people you work with, that they matter, goes a long way.
and I bet that if you were on a campaign that you enjoyed and didn't compromise your ethics, values, or morals, you would have been there for a lot longer than 3 months. We both understand that. And so with skills like yours and your audiences, you shouldn't be selective. You shouldn't sell your soul for that golden fiddle and for that dollar. That's why I turned down much more campaigns than I've accepted. And you'll respect this. We do not do sports books, casinos, stocks, pharmacies, or sweepstakes here at this call center. And I have nothing against it. People do it. But this is a strict Catholic country, and I just want to make sure that people that work at Costa Rica's call center can go home and tell their parents what they do for a living. And why? It's because I was raised that way. It's just the way that I think. I'm very consistent like that. It could be 10 times larger, but maybe I don't want to be. Look what happens when the companies are too big. It's tough to control. And, that's all. There's always a sweet spot in regards to business size.
So what are some of the ways that that you inspire people to grow? What's a good example of how you get people out of their comfort zones and gently nudge them to keep being the best versions of themselves?
Excellent question, Chris. Well, since once again, I am in a linguistic environment, I try to stack certain things. So if I'm role playing with somebody, for an example, I'll have them stand up. Why? Why not? It's a little more confident building than just sitting there. You're also talking in front of 6 people, so you're practicing public speaking while standing up. And I'll hold the script in the left hand and use your right hand for illustrators. So you're in sync with yourself. There's congruence there. What does that do? It slows you down because most people speak twice as fast as they should. And then I teach them the pacer room, and I want them to touch walls. Why? Because I want you to, like a swimmer. Why? Because I just still want you to. And so while they're talking, they're touching walls and they're going back and doing again. And you can see that they're testing in front of people and they're giving good answers. And I want them to do name drops. They must pause before names and numbers and extend those trigger words. It's for attention getting. Face to face is one thing. There's tons of micro expression readings that can get your attention. But when you remove that on the phone, must keep their attention in 30-second bites or you're going to lose them. And so I just can't say, Chris, every 2 seconds you're going to get annoyed. But here's the beauty of this, and it's the cousin of the name drop. There are personal pronouns in every sentence. There's your, her, air. What do I say? Put a 1/4-second slide on it. It's not a Chris, but it's a your. Still going to pay attention. It still works. It brings you back. Then you got to make sure you tie it down by saying, makes sense, right, Chris? Or Chris, sounds good, right? And then the bow on top. May we move forward, Chris? Sure. And then you move forward. And so I know it sounds very, rigid, but it's not in normal conversation flow. It's just times when you put in certain things for checkpoints and you make sure you repeat people's information so they don't have to repeat it 7 times. just being a little bit more of an active listener. But it's not that. Working at a call center, we have a QA department, quality assurance. We listen to your recordings for KPIs, which are key performance indicators. And besides what I'm paying you to do, which are at least 20 to 30 of them, I focus on the soft skills. I really want to know, you pick up additional things on the phone call, like anniversaries or dogs' names, or when you talked about how nice Judy was before you got transferred. So when you call that company back, she thanks me for telling you, Chris, how nice she was. And then starts telling me different things about the company, of when to call back, it's a better time, or certain departments, or whom to speak with, and so stuff like that. Because you don't need to push and don't pull. It's annoying. And you're not the Wolf of Wall Street. It's not sense of urgency. Stock sales, you got to respect people's boundaries, but you can separate yourself from people that are carpet bombing and just trying to claw away the lost art of telemarketing and speech. Well, what we try to do is company name spikes, proper introductions, positive escalations verbally and in writing. Goodness gracious, you are showing such respect before any contract is made. And you've already made friends with like 5 people at the company who love getting transferred around. Because if you meet, Jimmy in the mechanics department, he knows the whole company anyway. And then when you finally get through to the vice president, you're like, yo, I met Jimmy. How'd you speak to Jimmy? Like, everyone loves Jimmy. You start so strong. Instead of saying, is this a sales call? We're good, thanks, don't call back. How'd you get my name? You always get the, who's this? Or, hey, why are you calling, Richie? What's going on? It's a positive reinforcement. You don't put yourself in that category of just a lowbrow salesman that just uses cliches or pushes a pen or interrupts. Beautiful flow if you learn to do this. And so you ask what keeps them motivated, not procrastinating. The art of speech. So it's less texting and emailing and chatting. Put that phone down, look up at people, and really use this beautiful art. And if they do this, they'll make $1 million. They'll be marketable. Girls will fall in love with them. What are you doing wrong? I mean, you should be practicing like Al Pacino's Scent of the Woman. He dances for like 5 minutes, one of the greatest parts of the movie. They didn't get married. No one ever said they did. But there's nothing wrong with dancing with someone for 5 minutes of your life. If you have a wonderful conversation with somebody, that's like a dance. They will remember you forever if you just meet on a plane or a train or through hallways or stairways or wherever you are. You might bump into someone. You will never forget them. They were charming and nice and left a nice impression, and really ask second and third follow-up questions to really show interest. Make it cool. And it's nice when people bump in, you go, man, I met you 5 years ago. You were doing this, this, and this. I'm like, I cannot believe you remember that. And I remember you too. And so isn't that nice? And then you're like immediate friends. And so that's just the way I roll. And it's good for a lot of people here. Sometimes it's not a good fit because I expect the most of people. And if they don't step up, they just leave. The ones that stay, they really increase their skills. We use that word enriquecer. They enrich themselves. And it's a beautiful thing to see when the flower blooms and people come knocking on my door, not to complain that they're sick. You're not going to believe this, Hefe. I go, what? I got a sale. Listen to this recording. And so it's one of the greatest things when you see their tails wagging. Who runs to a boss's office to brag about their work? And nobody does. And so in my industry, it's nice when they catch a big fish and they want to hear it, or they want to play it in front of the 7 guys on the account. And everyone high fives and laughs and pauses because they said a really good tie down. It's fun. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, I like that. I really do like that. Such a shame I never landed there. But then again, if I had, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. Or wait, would I? Maybe we would have launched this show and we would have been out in maybe Hako, doing this show on the beach.
You worked in a center. Really, it's not for the faint of heart. And I consider people that have done collections and other sort of accounts as like super Division 1. regardless of the ethics. You could look at Boiler Room, Wolf of Wall Street movies and things we've seen in Costa Rica at certain call centers. There are some exceptionally skilled men and women that can make and receive phone calls. I have seen people that can do triple backflips, their eyes closed on the phone. And I'm in awe. I admire them. First, the bilingual aspect, but secondly, their composure. Real artists, and they know what their worth is. But you and I have seen it. Literally, some of the most incredible speakers, locatores, portavoz, whatever you want to call them, they're incredible.
For sure. Oh no, yeah, a lot of really talented people. This has been a really great conversation, Richard. We are coming up close to the time. Do you think that there's anything that I should have asked but I didn't ask, or anything that we should have covered but I didn't cover today?
Yeah, my classic pinball machines. Arcades are going out of business down here. And so when you look at Mercado Libre or Craigslist, some guy in Perez Zeledon has got a whole bodega full of them. So me and my buddies will jump in a car and go. I currently got 12 pinball machines. And I love it because virtual pinball is nothing compared to a real one. My oldest is a 1970 Bally's Camelot, and the newest is a 96 Last Action Hero Arnold Schwarzenegger. And so these are fun machines, and they're high maintenance, but learn the secret. Suppose you want to buy a machine, not my favorite decade, the 70s, where it's electromechanical. We're talking like the 80s and above. In Costa Rica, the corrosion, it's so old, these tablets and these CPUs. So instead of getting Billy to try to fix it for $100, just buy a brand new one for $150 and just replace the entire back of your marquee. And what I have found, if the playfield is in good condition, that solves about 95% of your problems. The rest are just some connectors of cables and some lights. Well, my machines just turn right on and are ready to go. And it's just, it's incredible. And so I've been able to restore some of the most beautiful treasures, in my opinion. Playfield and the marquee and the painted art and the sounds when you get the bells of the xylophone in the early 80s with those sort of noises, like space noises. And why not? I love the arcades in the 70s and 80s. I always thought it was a great environment, and your $5 had to last a whole weekend. And almost like a grown man child, I said, if I ever could afford one, I'd get one. Well, I can afford more than one. So I invested in it, and brings me pure pleasure. And I tell you what, I'd rather own 5 pinball machines than a Rolex watch. If you put 2 of them in, I will grab those pinball. I would run to them. Dudley Moore in the movie 10. And because I know me. And I know what makes me happy. My Sunday pinball marathons are cleaning them with the Wildcat 125 or, fixing a bulb or something. It's just, they're like the movie Christine. I think they have their energy. There's electromagnetic energy that these machines give you. Say they don't. If you hit certain shots or the balls in the bumpers and they keep giving you points or keeps going and hitting the golden for you and doesn't shoot it down the middle but gives you simple shots, she's in a loving mood that day. A sweet machine. And then when she's in a bad mood, 3 balls in a row, go down and Ganal's are right in the middle. Okay. Someone tilted her, right? Pissed her off, put her in a bad mood. And so, have fun. If you really find your passion, by all means, get yourself a beautiful pinball machine to put in your house. You'll be the most popular person in the neighborhood.
I love that. You know what? I think you've sold me. I'm going to go and look for some pinball machines. I know up here, and I know in the U.S. too. I've seen them. You can buy them at estate auctions sometimes, or you can get them at, like you said, different arcades that are going. Actually, Truck Stop. I saw a Truck Stop was selling one recently, actually, for I think it was about $500, but still.
$500?
Yeah.
You know what machine it was?
No, it doesn't. No, I didn't really look that heavily into it.
Was it working at the time?
Well, I mean, it had lights on the back and everything. It just had a sign on the top that said for sale.
For a nickel? Come on, Chris, let's buy it. I'll throw in half. Let's get
All
this
right, I'll go
one.
see if it's still available.
Take some pictures, send it to me. But no, you should definitely get one. Why? You really will get, if you want your money's worth, fine. But when you really can play the game, because it was expensive and it goes fast, and you play maybe 1, 2 games tops. Have you ever in your life? It's like Halloween. As much candy as you want to eat, you play that thing for 4 hours, you finally get it. You understand the timing of the flippers and every target and all the scores. You read the manual. You go, man, it does cost you about $200 to learn these games. It takes forever. Imagine how much money you put in Pac-Man. But I tell you, it's like learning golf or playing pool. Certain things with hand-eye coordination, timing with balls. It's very interesting, the speed and the setups, and what a game. And I do understand professional players, and I do understand why they take it seriously. You want to hear something even crazy? There are people that have come to visit me. Yeah, I post my stuff on the internet, my games and stuff. There was a guy that came out of Amsterdam, on Victor, with his son David. Has pinball tournaments up there in Holland. He's like, hey man, I wanted to play some pinball. If he had time, I would have brought him to my house to play the games too. And just people come and visit. And you know what's interesting? Pinball collectors, real collectors, there's something there. Me today, you tomorrow. I know that if I ever go to Holland, I see my buddy Victor, I'll get the VIP treatment. Just like if he ever comes to visit me. Anybody that loves pinball as much as I do, even as one machine, you can come to my house. I will bring you, I will drive you home. Definitely. I want you to experience it and love it like I do, because there is that pure passion that people have for these machines that will almost die for. But yes, become a collector. 500 is not expensive. And if you need to order parts, Marco Specialties, a couple other sites, you just look up the part. Very easy to fix. Simple to fix. And they last as long as you keep them in a nice environment and nice and clean. The treasure. You're already cool, man. Why don't you just put it to like 5 other levels with a real pinball machine? You have to do it.
Yeah, I think you're selling me on the idea. I might have to go and see if it's still available. Or actually, even the arcades up here, the biggest one in Niagara Falls, the Midway, they just did a revamp, and they took out a lot of their old mechanical machines and replaced them with electronic ones. I wonder if we can. Wonder if they have some of those still left.
All under $1,000, those ones from the 70s. It's just mostly contacts that you have to clean to get them working. And to me, pound for pound, they're easier and less expensive to fix than the newer machines. And then you still have the last generation of the painted wood, because after that, it was laminates or stickers. So if you have these incredible beauties in the 70s and beforehand, you will see this painted wood that you'll start seeing some of the cracks. Some people get upset over it depending on how much damaged it is. But for me, I see it as just beauty. As long as it adjusts the gameplay a touch, because that's her own role now, and doesn't ruin the art, that's just her aging. And I respect that, and I try to preserve it as much as possible. But no, my friend, it's not a perfect role anymore. She's got a couple cracks in her. And that's just how it is. Do you want to replace it? Absolutely not. You do not replace that stuff. Unless it's completely damaged, when it's time to replace the side art. If there's graffiti on it, scratched up, or you just can't tell anymore. But if it's somewhat faded, and it's still from the 70s, and you can still make out that art, I wouldn't touch that or even touch it up. Leave it as is, because it's been preserved that way. Think about all the people that played, as you say, in these truck stops in the 70s and 80s, and these fun bars and arcades, and the fact that they weren't trashed or destroyed. And it's cool when you own the machine, you open it up and you look at the counter. And I saw 11,000 games played on my tabletop Phoenix machine from 1980. 11,000 games on that. 11,000. I was like, that's awesome. Rock on. And it's still working with a 17-inch monitor. And, but yeah, my crazy passion. But I try to share this with them, kind of like Willy Wonka and his candy room. As long as they see an environment that's not sterile, that it's still fun, recess, dessert, happy, laughing, friends. Chris, it reduces any sort of attrition. And that's not procrastination at all. That's forward thinking and assertiveness. And not in a weird way. I don't want to press something on somebody that's uncomfortable. How do you turn down a game of Pac-Man or air hockey? And if you did during the interview process, Chris and I wouldn't hire you. You don't seem like the kind of person that could play and have fun with the team. So that was part of the natural filtration process as well.
I like that. I like that one, actually. It's interesting. Come in for an interview, play a game, but the interview wasn't the interview. The interview was the game.
It's the genius. Get you to relax a minute and calm down, Chris. You're down 2-0. Stay focused. Get your game together. That's fun stuff. Come on, man. If you can't laugh at life, when are you going to laugh? When you're down.
Oh, that is very true. Richard, has been a real pleasure. Just before we wrap up and call it a day out over here, what is the best way for people to reach out to you and ask you about those pinball machines, or maybe get some photos or some videos, or maybe even get a ticket into see it?
I was going to say, definitely buy a plane ticket and fly down here. But no, shoot me an email, CEO at Costa Rica's Call Center.com. Be more than happy to answer any questions. And I tell you what, if they're buddies of Chris, Procrastinators, Pitstop, be more than happy to review a script, some rebuttals, role playing, free o charge, just to make sure that I can pay it forward to you and your amazing audience and see what we can do. But I had a great time today, Chris. Thank you so much for a great interview and a good time.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Richard, and to all our listeners there, take them up on it. Costa Rica is a beautiful country. There are some culture shocks, but, hey, pinball will glaze those right over. And, as they say, Gallo Pinto is really good too. So we'll get that going. And thank you once again for tuning in, everybody. And just remember, if you can't find that inspiration or motivation for yourself today, maybe just go out and be that inspiration or motivation for someone else. And we'll see you again next time.